You just hit 95 decibels. 10 minutes at this level can cause temporary hearing loss. Hold on!
What?
We're trying to get set up.
First of all, I was trying to get tones set.
I mean, that did fantastic. One of the best features is you can just turn the speaker off and go direct out via XLR. So we're going to hear it now. We love modeling tech. I mean, make no mistake, we love it. We embrace it, we celebrate it, we cherish it. But there's something about a tube amp that's just, it's more raw. It's got, it's got a little magic that, the digital stuff hasn't quite got. It's close, but it's not quite there. And I know a lot of you feel that way. And you just love tube amps. And so if you are a guitar player that loves the tube amp, you really want that experience, but you're in a situation where you have to go direct for whatever reason. Maybe it's because you brought your tube amp to church, like me, back in the early 2000s, my PV Classic 30, and I turned it on 0.5, and the guy in the back was like, "It's too loud, turn it down." Maybe that's you. And you gotta turn your amp on 0.1, and there's no life in it. Or if your church or the venue you're playing just says you have to go direct. I'm sorry, that's just what we do. Here's a pod go for you to play through, and you don't want to do that. We have the solution for you. We're talking today about the REVV D25 combo amplifier and the D20 amp, which comes in a head configuration. And we have both of them here. Both of these are tube amps. That sound fantastic. We'll talk about the tone a little bit, but they both have two notes technology built in. So if you know what a two notes like Captor X is, those things are built into both of these amps, and they're super convenient to use. You can just push a button and the speaker turns off, and you got output via the XLR out, and it sounds really good because you can use the two notes IRs with them, and they come with some two notes IRs from REVV. We're going to talk about the two notes software and walk through it in a bit, but you can load your own IRs as well. So all throughout this video, you're going to hear these amps direct, and you're going to hear some worship tutorials, IRs with them, that we paired with them, that we think sound really good with these amps. All that stuff is available below. You're going to hear them both in a stereo configuration because we're running a board into these amps. We're not using effects loops or anything like that. All the effects straight in. And we're going in stereo into both amps, panned left and right, and then you're going to hear just the D20 and just the D25 with effects running into them. So quickly, briefly, what you get, the D20 is a 20-watt amp that you can then run down at 5 watts as well. It's a fairly simple amp as far as its controls go. You've got volume, you've got gain, you've got treble, mid, and bass. And it's kind of voiced, in our opinion, a little bit like a Fender Princeton type of an amp. Great pedal platform amp, great clean tone. If you crank it, you can get some really nice gain out of it. The D20 and the D25 sort of share the same tone stack type of controls. They're voiced similarly. Both of them have a boost built into them. On the D20, it's like a push-pull pot. On the gain, and then on the D25, it's just a push button boost. They have a foot switch available where you can engage that boost as well. Both of them have built-in reverb, and you can get built-in reverb on the output via the two notes torpedo software. Both of them have like convenient features on the front panel where you've got different IRs loaded in. You can have 6 different presets, and we've used these 6 presets to get 6 different setups from Worship Tutorials IRs that we really like. XLR outputs out the back, headphone out so you can play silently, which is a really great deal. These are very high quality as far as their construction. They're made in Canada by REVV. They're not made like in the Far East. Not to say that products made there are less quality, but that's important to some people, we understand. So it's a really high quality product offering from REVV, and we think REVV is really pushing sort of the boundaries of what you can do with take a traditional tube amp but put modern day technology into it in a way that it's married together really well, really easy to use, and we think they sound fantastic. And another thing about product demos like this, from us and from other people, when you see it on YouTube, a lot of times the way it works is we'll get a piece of gear from somebody and we'll use it, we'll get to know it, we'll learn it, and enough to where we can make some content with it. But usually that happens pretty fast. And so, we try to have get as much sort of real world experience with these products when we do demos like this as we can. But oftentimes, you can't play everything live for like a month. Because your setup would constantly be changing, which ours kind of does anyway. In this situation, we do have kind of a unique perspective because Nick has been using the D20 and the D25 in a live setting for months now. So this is sort of his main rig that he's adopted to run this live. So Nick's going to come in and talk about his experience using these live for an extended period of time.
As Brian said, I have had a lot of experience with running these 2 amps. Well, not the black Rev, but I have a Rev that I've made, and it is very similar to this color, and I think it's just better.
Interrupt this video to tell you that we've partnered together with REVV to give away this powder blue. They call it powder blue. I call it Carolina blue. REVV D20. Killer amp. I think these currently retail for $13.50. These things are seriously cool. You want one, now you can get one for free if you win it. Links below to learn more about how to sign up for the free giveaway. All right, back to the video.
But I've been having a lot of experience running those, and I run those in stereo, I've run them in mono, and I absolutely love them. One thing that's been really, really cool to me is before these amps, I was running a quad Cortex, kind of like a hybrid setup, pedals kind of going into it and after it, effects loops and all that jazz, running stereo. That was very, very cool. Running WT captures, and they just sound fabulous. But then once we met up with REVV at NAMM and found out more about these things, and then we eventually got some, gosh, like, I think everybody can agree that modelers are about 90-95% of the way there, but like certain pedals like fuzz and heavier overdrive sometimes kind of lose it. It still sounds neat, it's a different experience, but if you want that just real raw and honest fuzz kind of sound and just the overdrive sound and how the pedals go into the amp, how the tubes react to all of that, it's fabulous. Brian was saying like, oftentimes you can't have your volume turned up super loud with a traditional tube amp, but with these you're running direct with XLR, there's no issues whatsoever. I mean, so for instance, I walked in, the first Sunday I walked into the church to play with an amp and not a modeler, they were like, and I was like, don't worry, it's not going to be coming out of the speaker, there's no noise going to be made on the stage, it's all going to go through the monitor, the PA, whatever you want to call it. And they're like, okay. And then I did it, and they're like, whoa, wait. Well, that was easy. That was like really, really fast. And yeah, it's an amazing thing. And one thing you may not know about me, and this is very, very important to me, but I've broke my neck 2 different times, and I can't carry heavy things anymore. Like, these are absolutely super light. I don't even know. I really don't know the specs, but it's like a half a pound, 3 pounds. One of the Sundays that I took, I just wanted to try. I have a Torpedo Captor X. So what's built into these things? And I just wanted to try another amp. So I was using a third power Majestic 40 with my D25, which it just sounded choice. It sounded so, so good, but I didn't like it. It was fine. I put the Captor X in my gig bag, and I actually technically did not carry anything extra. But it just wasn't the same experience as running these, literally these, in stereo. And I mean, that's something. It's so light, you don't need to carry anything else, just plug directly in. But one thing people kind of always ask me is, well, how do they take the pedals? This right here is a perfect pedal platform. I believe personally that if you run these amps as just amps, no pedals into them, they sound fabulous. But when you want to put pedals into them and have all of the massive reverbs, the big delays, the huge like fuzzes, and all the cool things that the PW world has, you got to run these like a little bit flatter, a little bit more dull, and they just really take to the pedals so well. So in my opinion, these are some of the best amps to take pedals out there.
So before we jump into the 2-note software, I just want to take you through the amp controls themselves, what you can get out of it. You can see I've got it gained up pretty high. This is giving me my sort of edge of breakup sound that I like. So now we can clean up and we can get sort of that edge of breakup thing. If you pull the gain back, the amp is really clean. Kind of anemic with this guitar straight into the amp, but if you're running a pedal board or a guitar that has a higher output, it'll work well in that situation. So if we turn the amp all the way up, we'll show you how much gain we can get out of it. I think this thing excels as like a pedal platform. That's really why it was built, what it was built for, and it sounds great in that capacity. So let's just go through the EQ controls quickly. Treble all the way up. All right, mid-range. So if you turn the mids down, you can kind of get that black panel Fender mid-scooped type of sound. I prefer more mid-range in my guitar tones. Right about there, sounds good to me. And then bass, we'll go all the way up. So there you can see if you turn the bass down, mid-range up, and treble up, you can kind of like, you know, get that mid-focused Vox type of a thing going with this as well. So really a pretty versatile amp, but you know, with like many amps, the amp has a sound and then the EQ kind of sculpts it. It's not like you can completely revoice it, but it sounds good. Another thing to note, in this mode, this pre and post button takes the power amp section out of the amp, like the analog power amp section. It pulls it out, and then we'll show you with the two-note software you can emulate a power amp section. This volume control, when the power amp section is in the circuit, the volume doesn't do anything. When you pull it out and you emulate a power amp section, we're not doing that right now, but now this volume does something. And you can hear, you can get a lot more gain out of the amp that way, and this sort of acts like a master volume in that setting. Finally, these two controls over here, we've already talked about the speaker load and the 25 5-watt thing. You can, of course, use headphones out. The output level is just a pure volume level that controls the digital output of the two notes captor that's built into this thing. And then the virtual cabinet is like a preset, and it selects, we'll show you in just a moment with the two note software, it selects 6 different presets, and it's just the first 6 that you have loaded in the software. So speaking of, let's dive in. Quickly, what we've got here is I have loaded some of the Worship Tutorials impulse responses. Right now, you're listening to a Bogner Duende, like we mentioned earlier, with the G12H 70th anniversary speaker. One of them with a Royer 121, one with an Earthworks SR25. So those two IRs are sort of being blended together. That's our bread and butter, like mic setup for an amp. You get impulse responses from Rev when you get this. They come loaded on there. You can also use the virtual cabinet that comes with, you know, modeling that comes with the two notes stuff. So lots of options. Of course, you know, it's a self, you know, it's a self promotion, but we do really like the impulse responses that we make. It's our sound. So that's what we're using here. I'll show you in a bit what the stock ones that come with it sound like. But you can load up whatever cab really that you want. And we say this in a lot of videos, the cabinet makes an enormous difference in the overall tone. So I'm just gonna cycle through sort of these first 6 presets. It would be the same as if I took that virtual cabinet knob on the front of the amp and just went through them. Again, it's just gonna load the first 6 presets you have. That's the Bogner Duende. Here is the matchless Laurel Canyon with another G12H speaker. It's a different one. Again, 121 SR25. So a little bit less mid-range response there. Next is the Bad Cat with the custom 65 speaker that they have in the Bad Cat. That one sounds really good. I like that one. All right, next is just the matchless G12H30. A lot of G12H30s loaded up. We found that that paired really well with this amp for digital out. Okay, the next is, this says a Creamback, 65 watt Creamback from the Tone King. Looks like I messed up when I set this up. So I'm gonna take this opportunity to show you just how easy it is to load whatever IR you want. You come in here, I've loaded these on the captor that's built into the back here. So you can see I've got these G12H30 matchlesses, I've got these Bad Cat speakers. There they are. There's the Creamback. So I'm gonna go 121 and an SR25 together. Sounds like this. To me, that's got more of that classic Fender thing. And then there's the power amp section. So to use the power amp section, it sort of works in concert with the way the amp is developed. I'm gonna go and defeat the power amp section of the amp. I'm gonna turn on the modeling of the power amp, and we're just gonna walk through some of the options here. So I've got contour up and depth around 50%. So first is a 6L6. EL34. you're really changing the voice of this amp now on its direct output. EL84 sounds Voxy again. We'd want to tweak the EQ of the amp and sort of the drive and volume levels of the amp based on what we pick. I just want to show you how different these can sound. There's a lot in this software that we haven't covered in this section, but it just shows you how forward-thinking these amps are. A Captor X is like a $400 or $500 piece of gear, and it's really good at what it does. And you know, to use it with a traditional tube amp, you'd have to buy that separately. This comes built in, and you get this kind of functionality just out of the box.
I know very much, like Brian and Nick were mentioning, there's like a nuance with amps, and you just can't you can't create, at least not yet. We're getting there. It's like it creeps slower, it gets closer every single day.
Tone X is like, it's getting there.
Yeah. QC was like another level. It's crazy. So we are loving this. This was really an idea. Rev was very kind to just send these to us.
Yeah. Thank you, Rev.
Thank you, Rev. We love having these to mess with, and we were like, this is something that there's definitely it bridges the gap. Mm-hmm. You're an amp player who maybe a lot of people just gave up and they went modelers, and they're actually quite happy with it. They're not upset.
You can do things with that setup that is very expensive to do with an amp and pedal set.
Oh yeah. What we have here are two amps that are very similar, slightly different approaches, work great together. You could get two of these, you get two of these, whatever you want if you want to do stereo. I mean, it does remind me kind of Fender Princeton-esque. Those amps are notorious for being great with pedals.
Yeah, they're legendary.
Yeah, and the reverb circuit adds, we've had two different ones, and we've had one with reverb.
Oh, the Princeton.
Yeah, the Princeton. Reverb absolutely adds extra overdrive.
Yeah, these feel more like the non-reverb.
But even more so. That was going to be my point, was that there's more drive on tap, so it's even more flexible in that regard too. Great at lower volumes or lower gain volume amounts.
Yeah.
More gain, you can crank it. Rev is known for high gain stuff, which I do believe is probably why some people have written off. They just don't know.
Voice stuff?
Yeah, they just don't. They see these and they're like, that's cool, but like Rev is like middle.
And part of what people love about Rev and their higher gain tones is that the amps don't fall apart with tons of gain.
Yeah,
and these are they don't.
Wild. No, they don't.
Yes, whether you're pushing it or cranking them, pushing it with pedals or cranking them.
Right.
But when you mentioned Fender, like Princeton voice type of thing, one thing I've experimented with this on the two notes, the Captor output is we made some IRs of the Fender The Edge Deluxe. Which has a Celestian blue, because it's the Edge from U2. So it has a Celestian blue, and that speaker part of the sound of a Vox AC30 is that speaker. And when you pair it with this amp, you get more of a chime kind of a thing and more of a mid-range response because people don't understand. Some people do, but many people don't understand just how important the speaker is to the whole tonal recipe.
Yeah, and this isn't a advertisement for Worship Tutorials IRs. However, if you would like them, none of this was, but this is. They are linked below. We have a lot, and they
work
want
so
to make
well
more.
With this. Yeah.
Yes, and to us, what's cool about this is when we throw our IRs in here, it feels even more at home for us.
Yeah, it's our sound.
Because we're used to that. So if you have IRs you've used with other things, you're like,
oh yeah,
I like the IRs, but I like the idea of having an actual amp.
Yeah.
You can grab this, you load up the two-note software.
Or Tone Junkie or any of your favorite IRs all work with this.
And Brian showed all of that in the video already, but like that's what's cool about it is if you have something you're familiar with, you can drop them in and it kind of like continues to bridge the gap. Yes, modelers are super cool. However, this is actually the most, in my mind, the more innovative of the things that exist.
Yeah.
That thought came to me while we were sitting here.
And we made a video ages ago about how you can use like a Line 6 Helix with an amp and a universal audio aux.
Oh yeah, you were
to put the whole thing like in the effects loop. With this, it's even easier.
Yeah.
So you can run this in the effects loop of like a Helix or an Axe-FX, and now you've got like your actual tube amp running the amp, and then like your modeler does all the effects and stuff, and you get all the cool like snapshots or scenes and all that tech. So it's like you can really bridge the gap between digital and analog with these things.
Yeah, and I think inevitably when we do videos on products and we actually show excitement, people are gonna think this is paid. It is not paid.
No, we have not received money for this.
Rev didn't even ask for this video.
No, they didn't.
They sent this to us and they were like, we'd like for you to check these out, and that was it.
That was it.
If people have a hard time believing YouTubers can actually be excited about equipment. This is a very cool idea.
I don't care what they believe.
Yeah,
whatever. I am excited about it.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'd like to see if we can take this idea and like go a different amp flavor, traditional amp style direction, but with two notes in it.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I think there's other amp voicings that we'd like to hear.
Yeah.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
But I think that's it, Brian.
And conveniently, almost as though we planned this ahead of time, all these Rev amps are currently on sale in the month of September. If you're watching this after September and they're not on sale anymore, well, you just need to subscribe.
Just wait.
You just need to subscribe and click the bell.
Probably go on sale again soon.
So you watch stuff, it's important.
Yeah.
Links below.
Where
you can
more
get
info,
it.
All that
stuff.
Yes.
Thanks, Rev. Really appreciate it.
And thank you for watching. We will see you guys next time. Make sure to subscribe for more cool stuff like this.
Bye-bye.